I've been using 8BitDo controllers for over 6 months now, almost daily. I own a few of them. I've even bought one specifically for my Switch too because I prefer it over the Pro controller. This is how 8BitDo is held up in my experience. Now, I don't want to read specs off of a box. I want to share with you my real experience about things like comfort, durability, and battery life. And I want to compare that to first-party controllers. Generally speaking, an 8BitDo controller will come in cheaper than something like an Xbox, or don't even get me started on the price of a Switch controller. Generally, these guys go for about 60 bucks. No sales, no nothing. When you compare that to Xbox or PlayStation at about 65, and again, Nintendo, 70 or 80 plus, it's a no contest. The best part though is that this controller doesn't feel cheaper than the others. You get the same quality, if not maybe a little bit better, for the same price. 8BitDo does do sales, so you can get an even better value too sometimes. Now, comfort is a big deal. I've had controllers from third parties, they're just not comfortable. They don't feel right, they're awkward in your hands to try and use, and it isn't a good time. An uncomfortable controller is a surefire controller that doesn't work for you and you're not going to want to pick up again. Compared to like Xbox has a pretty good hand feel for me. It's not bad, I like it, it's comfortable, but I do think that the 8BitDo has just a little bit more natural grip and the button placement is just slightly different enough that it feels a little bit better. Now, I do have pretty average sized hands. If you have bigger hands or even smaller hands, you might feel differently about controller grip, so a word of caution there on that. But for me, this placement of the stick and buttons, along with the actual shape of the controller and the way my hands wrap around it, it's perfect. On PC, connection is never an issue for these. When you have the charging base plugged in via USB-C in the back to your computer, it always connects automatically. Once it's on the base, all you have to do is take it off. You would hear an audible ping if I had this plugged in, and it would be connected. When it comes to grabbing my controller, I don't think, I don't troubleshoot, I don't anything. I just grab my controller and I play. This same method for connectivity is also what keeps the controller fully charged. On the charging base, things are simple. You set it, you forget it until your next gaming session. That being said, I've also had times where I forgot to put the controller on the charger and used it for at least 2, if not more days in a row for my gaming sessions. I've never had this controller die on me. That's a lot more than I can say for my Xbox or my Switch controllers. The durability of these controllers is second to none in my opinion. The actual grips and the thumbsticks have held up beautifully after my daily use of this specific controller for 6 months. If you look at these thumbsticks, they're pristine, they're like brand new. Same goes for button feel, they're all tight. Joysticks aren't loose, nothing like that. But this Xbox controller that I used for about a year, you can see on the top of the joystick there's some wear. I didn't use this controller daily for 6 months like I did my 8BitDo controller, and this one's already showing some pretty serious signs of wear. I'd say my only complaint about 8BitDo is that their color palette could use some work. To my knowledge, they have a black, a purple, and a white controller, and those are their mainstays. They have a couple other ones here and there, and I think they team up with like different games to do some one-offs. That's not bad, but it's not my style. I will say Xbox has a very good color palette. This silver is super sharp. Their black is also super sharp, but they have a pretty expansive palette of different colors you could get. I'd love if 8BitDo did something different, like maybe a red or an orange. It'd probably get me to buy a 5th controller from them, honestly. At the end of the day, if you want a controller that's reliable, reasonably priced, and durable, I think this is the way to go. I don't see myself switching from 8BitDo anytime soon unless something changes in the quality of their build. I just really like these controllers and think they are solid. If you have questions about the controller or any of my other controllers that I showed, I'm happy to answer them. And if you already own an 8BitDo controller, I'd love to hear from you about what your experience has been.